I am totally illiterate. Philosophy is easy. Anyone could do it. Totally illiterate.
I have Red Bull. It's the blue Red Bull, which is, I mean, that's how it comes out of the animal.
That's the best version.
Right? Exactly. Like that's all natural. So you're super drowsy, okay? Two. So we're sleepwalking to the end of the world here. I think it's good. We have not much left, like 10 pages of this text left. And you know what I'm kind of feeling we're going to make it. We're going to get to the end. Maybe we do a little time next time to, because I'm kind of sad to finish it. I think we're like the world's leading experts on this text. Like, I don't think we've got like 18 hours of the best gaming of this text around. Derrida's about to get into the Khôra stuff. Riki had brought up some sort of, I think worth relating. I'm always saying Derrida's a gamer, and I'm right about this. But uh, uh, I'm this question of like play being lost in games and what the difference between play and games is. Thinking about that in terms of creativity, I think will be worth talking about a little bit at least. And then I don't know, anything anybody wants to talk about. I've never read this part of Plato's Pharmacy. I know Nona always is skipping ahead, always is trying to show off, show up others. But I've never actually read. So this is me live reading the end of Plato's Pharmacy for the first time. And Nona has tried to spoil it for me and has failed several times. But I also do think I don't have in this PDF the last page, which is another plot twist, or the last page or two. And so but we'll do like a break and I'll get it during the break and also get something for me to eat. I should eventually eat some. But I already ate today. I can't believe this having to eat multiple times a day. Bullshit. I don't know how other people feel about that. But I don't know. Next presidential election, I'm voting for the person who makes it. So I only have to eat. Never. That and iambic pentameter. Getting rid of iambic pentameter. Not getting rid of it, but just in English, everything becomes iambic pentameter. It's kind of frustrating. And I'd like that to change. So those are my two main electoral issues. Okay, with that start, this is the big mama Derrida thing, the Khôra thing. But, okay, a quick review or recap of where we're at. We just had this big sort of quasi-summary of the whole Derridian picture of Western literature and Western metaphysics with these three names. Plato, Rousseau, and Saussure. And really don't feel bad because if you haven't read these two guys, because let me spoil it for you, out of these three, you know who the most important is going to be? It's going to be Plato. It's Plato. Plato is the most important. Plato is going to be it's always going to. Rousseau, you can really, Derrida can sort of take or leave, I argue, but doesn't really need Rousseau. But so I don't know. I just asked Riki, you're saying you're doing okay. You just went for a walk. Nona's tired. I'm tired. So we're in walks are kind of a dreamy thing. I daydream when I'm walking. I don't know why my Taylor Swift video stopped. It should be going. I think my computer just can't handle all this stuff open. Okay, I'm going to fix that. I'm going to lower the resolution. I apologize. Y'all should be able to see Taylor Swift in the background. It looks so bad. Okay. We can audible out of that for now. We're just going to make my face bigger. Okay. We're not going to have any Taylor Swifters do stuff. I'm a little too big brother right now. I like a pixel of her too. I'm sorry that I got rid of it. Here, let me go. I can go get one. I'll go get a pixel of Taylor Swift just for you. 1 second. What a threatening thing. Let me go get a picture of Taylor Swift. Pixel. So here we go. We do this. And then we'll put that right here. So there we go. We got Taylor in it. Yeah. We got Taylor in the shot there. Okay. Okay, so it might be a little painful, but I think it would be good for us to just walk through this big. Oh yeah, for more views. I was actually telling Nona about this, that I think the channel is going to go viral, and please mark this, because I'm going to make this video. I'm going to shoot it today, because it's things I think all the time, called some Hegelian themes in Taylor Swift lyrics. And I think that's hitting all the big SEO keywords. And I mean, Ed says it's a guaranteed hit. While I was thinking about it, he was sitting in the back of the room just snapping his fingers and rubbing his belly. He's always snapping his fingers, rubbing his belly when he knows there's a hit. So yeah, the Sabrina Carpenter video will be good too. It's like, what's delayed the Sabrina Carpenter video, Ricky, is that, like, I don't know if I can do justice to this. I was listening to the song. I was like, this song is so good, and I need a reading of it that's not just Derrida explication. I already have the best reading of it of anyone who's talked about this song, but that goes without saying. But I'm trying to respect it enough to give it something. I want Sabrina Carpenter to construct something for deconstruction and not just be deconstructed. I like that her last name's Carpenter. I'm trying to figure out which pun to make about that. Yeah, it sucks Taylor Swift lost first round. I was excited when she came out for the sort of correct choice in the election, and then didn't go. Yeah, no, the bar's low, but for me, Riki, the bar is me and Taylor or me and Sabrina. Okay, it's not me and YouTube or me and the other people. At least that's my artistic predilection. Yeah. Okay, it's fun. Y'all are some of my best friends. It's nice to chat. Nice to sit and have a chat. But let's game. Let's do some gaming. Okay. Okay, so who would like to read just this section for us again?
Yeah, I can go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
What law governs this contradiction, this opposition to itself of what is said against writing, of a dictum that pronounces itself against itself as soon as it finds its way into writing, as soon as it writes down its self-identity and carries away what is proper to it against this ground of writing? This contradiction, which is nothing other than the relation to self of diction as it opposes itself to scription, as it chases itself away in hunting down what is properly its trap. This contradiction is not contingent. In order to convince ourselves of this, it would already suffice to note that what seems to inaugurate itself in Western literature with Plato will not fail to re-edit itself, at least in Rousseau and then in Saussure. In these three cases, in these three eras of the repetition of Platonism, which give us a new thread to follow and other notes to recognize in the history of philosophia or the episteme. The conclusion and the devaluation of writing must somehow, in the very affirmation, come to terms with, first, a generalized sort of writing, and along with it, second, a contradiction. The written proposal of logocentrism, the simultaneous affirmation of the being outside of the outside, and its injurious intrusion into the inside. Third, the construction of a literary work. Before Saussure's anagrams, there was Rousseau's and Plato's work, outside and independent of its logocentric content, which is then only one of its inscribed functions. Can be read in its anagrammatical text. I somehow lost the thread.
No, this is not a grammatical sentence, I don't think. Let me, no, it's not a grammatical sentence. It wasn't you. That's what you're responding to, right? That it doesn't, because there's no...
Mm-hmm. Oh, I think I missed the semicolon and kind of read over that. Maybe that makes it...
I don't think so. Let me look. I don't think so. Let me look, but I'll try again. Before Saussure's anagrams, there were Rousseau's and Plato's work. And okay, it kind of grammatically, okay, it does go, okay, so here is the subject, okay, and Plato's work, but I missed, yeah, for me it didn't read grammatically either. It functions, okay, it's a bit grammatical, how meta, but no, I just trying to follow the sentence. And Plato's work, outside independence, logocentric concept, was not described. Okay, great, okay. So, a lot to unpack here. I've started a little bit. What jumps out at y'all as hard or easy or anything that makes sense relative to what we're doing? Or does this just seem totally insane? I will say re-edit, by the way, is probably it's more like republish or redo. I think that's like it's like, it keeps happening again, what Derrida's talking about. But, sorry, asked a question and then I said something else. Bad habit. But what jumps out at y'all here? Does this seem hard, easy? I think it's kind of hard, but...
I think we could just go through the 3 points, maybe again, just summarize them. And before that, I wanted to know, I'm not 100% sure, it came up before, but this anagrammatical stuff, what that is about?
Yeah, so I haven't read Saussure's anagrams. I don't know what he's talking about in that context. But what I can say in specifically, what does anagrammatical texture mean? Derrida's making this distinction between this very like macro level distinction of, okay, we have Plato's text, okay, and we have Plato's signature, meaning just everything we've said about Plato, all of Plato's work, all of it put together. And if we're cutting up that, we've been drawing out one part of that, which would be the grammatical part or the logocentric part or the speech part, the identical to self part, the part that needs to kick writing out, that needs to kick the poets out, that would kick Riki out because of his sick beats, would necessarily, I think, be suspicious for Plato. At the very least, you'd have to demonstrate to Plato that they taught you pedagogically philosophy in a logocentric way, and I bet they're cooler than that. So we've got all of Plato, right? And we have one half of it is a sort of grammatical, logocentric, identical to self speech thing where all play has to become games, all creativity, all newness, all of the aleatory, all of the chance-based sort of evental cool stuff that writing will give us access to. There's a part of Plato that has to domesticate that, control that, quarantine that, pharmacon, not be contaminated by it, okay? That's the grammatical text. And so when Derrida's saying the construction, we have to come to terms with the construction of a literary work, Derrida's saying, okay, this Plato literary side and this Plato sort of cool side isn't just something that, as Platonists tend to, can be separated and limited to pedagogy, limited to, oh, this is going to teach us philosophy. It has something outside and independent of the logocentric philosophical content, which is one of the things that the Platonic text overall can do for us, right? Okay, does that help? Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah, so we kind of had that before already to some extent, but yeah, this was really helpful.
Okay, cool. Okay, Ricky, you say you're totally lost. Is there anything that in particular that it's okay to be totally lost, but if you want to be a little less lost, or if there's something in particular that like you're looking at, you're like, this doesn't make sense, or you're stuck with here, maybe point to it and maybe we can talk about it or not, whatever you want to do.
Hold on, I need to think about how to say this. But can you explain like one more time so I can pinpoint like what my
Explain this argument about grammatic and anagrammatic one more time? Yeah, sure. So Derrida, as much as we're saying like Plato is, so Western metaphysics is Platonism, all thinking of being is Platonism. What Derrida is also trying to say is that there is a side to Plato, like a punk rock side to Plato, you could say, or a like alternative literary side to Plato. When he says a literary work, he's not saying he doesn't like literary stuff. He's just saying he's not sure what else to call this at this point. So like Plato is a literary writer, like an artist who is creating a literary text. He's writing sentences that have some sort of literary creative function that here Derrida doesn't know how to place, but that is separate from the philosophical side as we understand philosophy generally. If we're going to say, hey, philosophy is metaphysics, philosophy is present stuff, philosophy is like pharmacon bad, Adderall bad, writing bad, we want everything. Then we have to acknowledge Plato's doing something else too, that there's something about Plato and I mean, I get this impression of reading Plato. I think Plato's like one of the funniest writers ever. Like I read Plato and every moment is like hilarious. Like I can't stop laughing. And every moment is staged in a literary fashion in a manner that if you just reduce Plato to what classicists would call like his doctrine or like his list of arguments, you're going to miss all this side of Plato that is him as a literary figure. And what Derrida is saying is here, Rousseau was a guy who wrote novels and who was more obviously a literary writer. I think I've never read this Saussure anagram text. It sounds kind of crazy, but his point is like, hey, when we separate out the logocentric side of things of Plato, which is trying to domesticate writing, trying to limit play, is doing something we want to make trouble for, right? We don't want to then throw the baby out with the bathwater sort of and just be like, well, Plato sucks. Plato's crappy philosophy, metaphysics crap, and anti-drug stuff and burn it, right? That's not a deconstructive reading thing. And all he's doing here with this literary thing is saying, hey, Plato's got on the one hand what we've drawn out, this anti-play thing, but on the other hand, there's something really cool about Plato that maybe we could call Plato's pharmacy. That we could call, hey, Plato's store of different drugs. Maybe the humor I feel, the laughter at each moment of Plato I feel is one of Plato's pharmaceuticals, or one of these things that, doesn't become a concept I could explain to you as a philosophical doctrine, right?
So it's like pennies for gold, kind of.
Pardon? Sorry?
It's like pennies for gold, kind of.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, panning for gold. So we have the sort of dirt sort of stuff. I'm not an expert on exactly panning for gold, but right, like you're separating what is philosophy as philosophy, kind of just the story it tells itself of presence, basically. Anti-writing, go presence, writing is absency, go presence, da-da-da-da. That's the kind of chaff versus the wheat or the gold of a literary aspect to Plato. That's kind of that's the very preliminary sort of opposition here he's making, because he doesn't, because Derrida's just trying to save. He's really making a very light claim here because he doesn't have time to do everything. Sort of, he's just saying, hey, look, there's another Plato here. There's a cooler Plato here than what philosophy and what classicists have read.
Yeah, I see.
Okay, cool. Okay. Oh God, anagram stuff. Okay, I'm so bad at anagrams. Is one of the things when I was a kid I was like, that's stupid, and I never learned really how to deal with. I know literally what they are. Okay, you don't have to explain to me. I'm reading this. Okay, when a word describes itself as citation. Oh my God, that's a really hard quotation. Okay, no, it's okay. Okay, when a word inscribes itself as the citation of another sense of the same word. That's really hard and really cool and makes legible that. Okay. If we just bracket for a question the word anagram just for me, I mean, anagram is right. Okay, anagram is just you can literally is just rearranging the letters. So like Derrida will say, Derrida really likes this anagram. Y'all correct me if I'm just misremembering anagram. I'm nervous that maybe I respect the specter, respect and specter. These are the same 8 words, right? Or 7 words. These are the same. That's what literally an anagram is, right? It also is anagrammatical is something like non or like it's not anti, so it's or un. So it's like Anna describes like as a prefix, right? I'm talking about it as a prefix. Anna would describe as like I don't know what it literally is as a prefix. I would want to look up the etymology, but the reason why you'd say anagrammatical instead of like, because he's not saying anti-grammatical, right? Or he's not saying non-grammatical, right? He's saying anagrammatical, and that's like that's being neither grammatical nor non-grammatical nor opposed to the grammatical. And this is all specifying the relation between the sort of philosophy Plato, the grammatical, and the anagrammatical Plato, the kind of cooler world sort of Plato. Agrammatical, yeah. Agrammatical is also like, would be another way to say it, I think. And Anna is like is a big Greek prefix that I didn't review for this today, but it's like, so just review your ancient Greek and it'll all be really clear. No, but that's why we're using this, because Derrida doesn't like, basically Derrida's always trying to not be just dialectics or just be Hegel again, right? And he's really, oh, Anna means again? That's really funny. Okay, it means again. And then because in English anagrammatical or it really is like, it really reads like agrammatical, I think, known as like, so thank you for grabbing that. Okay, so I was right at the literal meaning of anagram. So he's playing on it's like agrammatical, but also with repetition in it. Okay, so Derrida's just being so clever. He's just getting so many upvotes on Reddit for this, okay? Like, so anagrammatical is agrammatical with repetition, with repeating the grammatical, and then not being simply grammatical. We don't have to go too deep into why that, but I've been riffing for a while. Do y'all follow? Does this make sense?
Yeah. I was, when I put the quote, it was mainly just, this was the other like point in the essay that he brought up anagram, so I thought it was just interesting just to put it there. And also because of like, here's this kind of, it was specifically regarding the translation, where this citation play was neutralized, where it was reduced, specifically the pharmacon to one of its poles with the remedy. I think that was the context, and I just thought it fit kind of nicely.
No, it fits really
with the
nice.
rest.
Yeah. No, well, no. If you're feeling any resistance for me, it's just because you've just made me do work just now, and I'm just really, it's infuriating to have to ever do work. But it's because I hadn't ever really thought about anagram in this context. I really hadn't thought about Anna. I hadn't thought about all this stuff, and so it's kind of really aggressive what you've done. And I think that we've it's good though. We figured out this anagram thing, I think, better. I certainly feel much better about it than I did before. And then we can figure out Saussure's anagrams later, because he clearly has a Saussure Edward. Yeah, Ed's fucking furious, absolutely. It's just like Ed's rubbing his belly and snapping his fingers, but he's really angry. He's just like, oh, whoa. That's just Ed in the background. He's totally illiterate, so I mean, he's never going to be able to help us. I mean, you guys know that he can't read. He can't read. I can't read it. Okay, so a few quick things. Oh, go ahead.
No. I just wanted to like, so if we can also like do the first 2 points. Just me trying also, like, if I have understood this correctly, with the generalized writing, I guess like there was this, also this writing before, not necessarily before speech, where we had this, so as soon as there's some kind of repetition, also with the eidos, right, there was this like, I think typos was like used for inscription and for eidos in some texts. I think it comes up again. With this metaphor, that was used to kind of get at good writing, bad writing, right? This inscription and the soul thing is what I assume is this kind of like generalized writing, or maybe not this specifically, but just assume, I'm not getting at it really 100%.
That's okay. That's okay. Everything you said is right. I think that we can get to it just more quickly, sticking to the phrasing. Everything you said is correct about we get through generalized writing, through all of these pressure points in Plato's text, through the typos, eidos thing. Eidos is a type is an eidos, type is something imprinted, written down. We get through this good writing through bad writing metaphor, right? Because remember, we have the knowledge. There's like good knowledge versus bad knowledge, and we had this extended Platonic metaphor, right, with the seeding and insemination thing last week of like, hey, think about an agriculture guy. A good agriculture guy is obviously going to seed well and not seed badly, right? Well, then isn't a smart writer going to write well? How is the best way to write? Well, it's like writing on the soul. The knowledgeable writer like writes on the soul and doesn't go around speaking or writing or something like this, right? And anyway, so Plato wants to get something, whether it's speech or eidos or the soul, that is quarantined from writing, because the writing needs to not be what Plato's internality is, and that you've highlighted very clear pressure points that Plato or that Derrida pushes on in Plato to get to generalized writing. If you want to go fast with a sort of generalized writing, it's maybe you already know it, but just for me at least, and for the Ed and me to just say quickly, generalized writing is another way to say is just saying everything's writing. Is that saying writing is characterized by a certain absence to itself? Guess what? That's everything. Nothing's ever present to itself. Not speech, not the soul, not consciousness, not anything. If you want presence to self, you might as well be God, and guess what? There is no God. So this is the Derridian, very just general. This is a claim, and that claim can't just be. You can't just stand up and say what I said. you have to say everything you said, because if you just assert a priori, oh, everything's writing, done. What's the deconstruction doesn't do anything. It doesn't intervene in any field. It doesn't function. You can't fight Plato just by asserting a priori thing. So Derrida's point is, if we close read Plato and we close read Rousseau and we close read Saussure, we end up with something like generalized writing in every case. Plato is going to try to get something other than writing and fail. Everything's going to be writing again. Rousseau is going to try to get something separate from writing, isolated from writing. Writing is a dangerous supplement, just like masturbation. Rousseau's original Gunnar sort of guy, but he's going to fail with that. Writing's going to be... Saussure is trying to think a general linguistics that would not be that would not be inscribed in a general thinking of writing, but at key moments, he's going to appeal to writing as just a metaphor or an analogy, and Derrida's going to have tons of game on saying, hey, dude, if you need writing to explain your whole speech thing, probably there are essential reasons for that. And Derrida's general point is just like, man, look at these three guys who are all, you've got this Swiss guy in the 20th century, you've got Rousseau in the French guy in the 18th century, I think. Don't check that. I think that sounds right. And then Plato in the 500 BC, and they all have this relation to writing that is generalized, that ends up generalizing writing. Okay. I was pretty sure it was 18, but I don't know from dates. I once had a professor a Russian literature professor, and I actually gave a presentation for him, and I sat down and he got up and he was like, what do people think of that presentation? And nobody said anything. He was like, that presentation is exactly what I never want you to do when you read literary text. Gave me a D- on it. And one of his criticisms was that I said the wrong century for one of the authors. He was like, you don't know Russian literature if you're putting this person. Anyway,
Wow.
I had to withdraw from that course. But all this to say, I don't know dates very well. Okay. I'm so beyond presence. I just don't know dates. I've thought so radically beyond it. Anyway, all that say, that's like, does that help you, Nona, with the number one / do you see why what you said was totally relevant, and even if you didn't feel like you were getting it, or?
Yeah, for sure. I think, so my kind of, what's super important is that this really has to be established for each of the thinkers, separately. You have to read them in turn and try to work this out. They try to push writing to the side, and someone comes back, etc. You get this generalized writing thing. I was trying to get to kind of disconnected from that. I think it was too quick, but that's super good.
Yeah, well, from what I could hear, you were naming some of the key points of that reading in Plato, and I think it's worth asking, what is the key moment? Is there one out of all of those? It's kind of what we've been struggling with this whole time. I don't have a straightforward answer to that. What if we got rid of one of these examples? Would Derrida's argument still be okay? I sort of feel like, yeah, but I wouldn't know exactly how to explain that. But yeah. So, do we want to talk a little bit about the number two, and then I feel good about how our understanding of 1 and 3, but I don't know what. Do we want to talk a little about the number 2 and then move on?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Number 2 is, on the face of it, I guess it's kind of simple at this point, but kind of the movement of how we got there, also with the play, what was it, Bude and Haida, whatever it was. Plato writing from out of Socrates' death, which I misunderstood the word last time, pederasty, but whatever. So
we'll talk about pederasty more later. I know that's something important to you. Yeah.
So there's this contradiction, exactly like you have this logocentrism and you propose it in written form, you write it down. It's kind of I guess to a certain extent that's like what some of the critics were getting or at least were saying right at the beginning, like these very weak kind of attacks that don't really get anywhere. Like, okay, writing's bad, but he does write. But so I'm losing my point. Just a second.
No worries.
Mm,
Take a second if you want.
proof. I don't want to really say
sure.
something, but so
You
yeah.
you don't have to, whatever you want to do. I just I think that I think I'm hearing you the general problematic you're talking about of like, okay, this contradiction, and Derrida's got these scare quotes of like, well, you know, writing against writing, we get that in a facile way, right? All this stuff's written down. Where do we go further with it? Derrida clearly wants to deepen the complexify it beyond that, but exactly how we're doing that is hard to summarize or name right this second. Is that kind of the direction you're going?
Yeah.
That's how I feel too. I mean, this like, so let's get the paragraph above and try to solidify it a little bit, because I think you're totally on the right track. So like on the right hunting track, the chases itself. So BT dubs, like the word for chase, chasse, it's hunting. Like it's like chasing itself away. There's almost no chance. I haven't looked at it, but chasse is like, it means hunt. And it's like, chasse, I mean, it's like hunts itself. Like it's, I don't know why you need to put Chase in there or Barbara Johnson. I don't know. Anyway, but we're on the right track, and we've got this hunting, this piège, this contradiction is not contingent. So basically what we want to do to get this number 2 really well, just thinking of poop. Okay. What we want to do to get this number 2 well is to think, okay, what is this contradiction beyond criticizing empirical writing or like little w writing, just inscription on a surface or something like that with ink or with what have you, with empirical writing. So it's got to be more than that, right? It's got to be more. Okay, so let's look at this. Okay, so what law governs this contradiction? So like, Derrida's asking, okay, what law governs it? And also what law that also means like what law is responsible for this recurrence? So like we have these 3 different guys who are all from different times, all demonstrating this contradiction. Okay. And so Derrida's, if you ever encounter just in thought or in deconstruction or anywhere, a repeated pattern, it's natural to ask what law is responsible for that repetition and what law governs it. So what law keeps it happening and what law is causing it? What law is structuring it? What does it look like? And he's gonna answer basically immediately, but he's saying, it's going to belong to the structure of inscription itself to have a logocentric side, which is here anti-writing, pro-speech side to go fast, and a punk rocky writing, absence to self side. Every inscription in general is going to carry that tendency. It's going to carry that temptation. It's a very big claim. So like, it's just worth like, this is a huge claim. It's a claim that doesn't seem bounded like to any particular culture or to any particular Like, what planet is it on? Should be on all the planets, sort of. That's how general it is. So necessarily, so he says Western literature, etc. But I think that anytime you write something down and you get diction as it opposes itself description, these sorts of these presence absence dynamics that get you really hating absence and wanting an inscription to just be itself, to not get out of its context, to not get and mean something else. You want pharmacon to just be remedy, or you want pharmacon to just be cure. You want it to just be poison. Just words are supposed to mean something. I heard that on the radio once. I've never forgotten that. I don't remember the context, but the DJ said, words are supposed to mean something. That belongs to inscription in general, that desire. It's not something we can be done with or discard. It's something we can vigilantly read and reread, but it's not something that will ever go away. And so part of why it's a contradiction in quotes is kind of because, well, for at least two reasons. So one would be like, contradiction would be like diction versus diction, kind of. I think like implicitly sort of, I mean, not, I kind of get that vibe, and I'm worth reading it that way at least. And we get to Hegel, opposition. Okay. It's also, and once we've acknowledged it is systematically called for, necessary, inevitable, then calling it a contradiction as if it's something to resolve or that we can limit or subtract or could have been thought out better. You know, these are all implications when you say like, oh, I found a contradiction in a writer, you know, that all those things kind of are lurking in the background as possible sort of solutions to the contradiction, right? And so that's also why it might be in quotes. So Derrida's trying to account in a very general, I mean, I think at one point he says hyper-transcendental. It's like giga-transcendental, meaning it's like a giga condition of possibility of any inscription in general. It's almost like, I don't know, like asteroids do this. That's kind of where we're getting. It's very hard to hold in one's mind. But I don't know. I've talked for like 5 minutes about it, but just now, so I don't know. I'll just stop now, but I hope that helps. Or
Mm-hmm.
but okay, do we feel better about these three things that we're supposed to come to terms with?
I mean, the second one, I guess, is mostly fine. Like somehow I don't feel as comfortable with it as with the other ones, because I feel like I don't have like the full picture of it. But I mean, it's good enough to just continue. I mean, if you want to finish today, we should.
Yeah,
we should
so
move on.
I've given up mentally on finishing it. We'll probably do one more day.
Okay,
So
good.
that's okay. I think that, I don't know. I think we've had a pretty productive 40 minutes, and I wouldn't want to have sacrificed that for speed. I don't know how other people feel. I think, but
Yeah.
okay. We're about to get to the like Big Mama Derrida Khôra thing, which I forgot was in this text. You're drowsy, I'm drowsy. Khôra is famously like a dreamy Plato thing. Like Plato says you can only think about it dreamily. So we're about to get to that, which is, I think we can enjoy and dream about. Oh yeah.
Actually,
Hurry up,
one
please, no, please.
about this section that we just once more about this contradiction. I just like
Sorry.
I feel like I
Let's
paused.
talk more about it. Yeah.
Okay, so actually, it's kind of relevant here if it means chasing away or like hunting down. I feel like maybe hunting down makes. Wait. it chases itself away. And anyway, so the relation to self-diction as it opposes itself to scripture, as it, okay, no, it's fine. I just had to reread that once, but
Okay.
I wanted to ask something, but it's actually okay. We can move. It's all good.
Okay, well, it's if it comes back and you want to ask about it and go back, please, no problem. We're not. It'd be weird to be worried about time. Given that we've spent 18 hours on this text, we might as well take our time moseying to the end, right? I'm not worried about it. So even if you think about it again, please. We're about to get to. This is like what Madonna sings about in that Ray of Light song. This going back to where it all began. Great song. Madonna's great. We love Madonna. Okay. Yeah. So I think we read some of this last time. So I'll just frame this and then read this out loud again, because this is like a big guitar riff for Derrida lands, the Timaeus and the Khôra. And we're going to find another place in Plato where like inscription's a big deal. And when we say like these metaphors that Plato has, we can discard them. Here's going to be another case where that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So, here, in any case, the turns of phrase that are somewhat awkwardly called Plato's metaphors are exclusively and irreducibly scriptural. Let us, for example, point to a sign of this awkwardness, the awkwardness of calling them, Plato's metaphors, in a certain preface to the Timaeus. So he's being mean about someone prefacing the Timaeus. In order to conceive a place, one must always, through a process of abstraction that is almost unrealizable. That's wild. Almost unrealizable in practice, separate or detach an object from the place it occupies. How could that mental operation be almost unrealizable? Abstracting thing. It's like either you can do it or you can't. Okay, this abstraction, however difficult, is nevertheless imposed on us by the very fact of change. Since two different objects cannot coexist in the same place, and since, without changing place, the same object can become other. So this is what my head is doing as I'm reading this. Okay. But then we find ourselves unable to represent place itself except by metaphors. Plato used several quite different ones, which have greatly confused modern readers. I love classes, dude. I love them. Like, they make me laugh. Okay. The place, the locus, that in which things appear, that upon which they manifest themselves, the receptacle, the matrix, the mother, the nurse. All these expressions make us think of, do they? Make us think of space, which contains things. Do you hear mother and you think, oh yeah, space, which contains. But later on, it is a question of the impression bearer, the formless base, the completely inodorous substance, so not any of us, on which the perfume maker can fix the scent, the soft gold on which the jeweler can impress many diverse figures. Civil Boudet edition. Page. Okay, here is the passage beyond all Platonic oppositions toward the aporia of the originary inscription. So just BT dubs, we're going to see like Plato himself saying Khôra is like beyond any Platonic opposition. Beyond the sensible and the intelligible is neither sensible nor intelligible, can't be contained by this opposition, which is like a big eyebrow raise for any reader, Plato, certainly for Derrida. Okay. Then we made two classes. So we're in the Timaeus and we're like classing everything in the universe. The Timaeus is a beautiful text and it tries to just account for and list everything that's ever existed. So then we made two classes. Now a third must be revealed. The two suffice for the former discussion. This is sensible and intelligible. One we assumed was a pattern, paradigmatos or tupos, intelligible and always the same. And second was only the imitation of the pattern, so sensible, generated and visible. There is also a third kind, which we did not distinguish at the time, conceiving that the two would be enough, sensible and intelligible. But now the argument seems to require that we should set forth in words another kind, which is difficult of explanation and dimly seen. I forget what I don't know if they say dreamily here. Classists are really fast and loose, so it could be, the dreamy thing could be here. I'd have to go look at the Greek. What nature? We're talking about Khôra. Khôra, Greek word for place. Okay, among other things, receptacle. What nature are we to attribute to this new kind of being? We reply that it is the receptacle, in a manner the nurse, of all generation. So mama, sort of. This nurse must be always called the same, for inasmuch as she always receives all things, she never departs at all from her own nature. So she's the principle of all difference, so she cannot herself be different to herself. So something that governs all change, receives all change, cannot itself change, because it would have to receive that, and its reception can't change. I'm going fast, but I'm trying to gloss this as I go. This nurse must be always called the same, for inasmuch as she always receives all things, she never departs at all from her own nature, and never, in any way at any time, assumes a form like that of any of the things which enter into her, so she's never anything like the sensible intelligible. She is the natural recipient of all impressions, and is stirred and informed by them, and appears different from time to time by reason of them. But the forms which enter into and go out of her are the likenesses of eternal realities, modeled within her after their patterns. So, we get tupo too with patterns. We get tupo thenta. I don't know what thenta means here. In a wonderful and mysterious manner, which we will hereafter investigate. So all the types, the eidos, the intelligible, all appear through her and go in and out of her, imprint on her without changing her. For the present, we have only to conceive of three natures. First, that which is in process of generation. Secondly, that in which the generation takes place. And thirdly, that of which the thing generated is a resemblance naturally produced. So we have intelligible, sensible, and it seems like, secondly, we've moved, previously it was the third kind, right? It's a little confusing. Now I think Khôra is the second kind, that in which the generation takes place. And we may liken the receiving principle to a mother, and the sorcerer spring to a father. The sorcerer spring being the eidos, the intelligible. So Plato still is trying to get this mother typo imprinty writing thing to be, now we have this, before earlier kind of seemed like it was going to be sort of prior to, and in a sense above, all the sensible intelligible. Now it seems like we're ringing it back in, we're lassoing it back in, and now it's going to be, the sorcerer spring is going to be the father. And the intermediate nature of the sensible to a child. Everything sensible is either on the way to, being the good, resembling an eidos being a tupos, or not, is fallen, is like a stunted process, is a stillborn, failed process. And may remark further that if the model is to take every variety of form, then the matter in which the model is fashioned will not be duly prepared unless it is formless and free from the impress of any of those shapes which it is hereafter to receive from without. So the mother has to be completely purified of form if it's going to be able to receive any form. If it has any form remaining in it, if it's got any forminess, then that's going to impede imprinting a form on it correctly. It can't be inseminated. It can't be copied onto. It's like printing onto a sheet of paper that already has something on it, right? If you've printed on a sheet of paper that already has something on it, it doesn't print, it prints over it. It doesn't print as well. Do you have to have, it has to be like a white sheet or like a completely formless jello, something that you can print onto that has nothing to it, that's completely, this has to be completely heterogeneous to the eidos, right? Completely heterogeneous to the forms, completely heterogeneous to the types, or it cannot function, right? And this is all according to Plato. Wherefore the mother and receptacle of all created and visible and in any way sensible things is not to be termed earth or air or fire or water or any of their compounds or any of the elements from which these are derived. So Aristotle famously interprets this Khôra as matter. He sees Khôra and he's like, that's matter. This is a shitty reading of Plato, right? It's not Aristotle's only shitty reading of Plato. It's a very shitty reading of Plato here. That Plato's emphatic that this doesn't have anything to do with matter. This doesn't sound like matter at all. Matter is the sensible thing on the way to different stuff, right? This is prior to matter. This is what would allow matter to take on a form. So it's neither form nor matter, neither form nor content, neither sensible nor intelligible. But is an invisible and formless being. Does that sound like matter to you? That's not hula. No. Which receives all things and in some mysterious way partakes of the intelligible and is most incomprehensible. The Khôra is big with everything that is disseminated here. We'll go into that elsewhere. So this is like an unforgivable Barbara Johnson translation mistake. But this is, I can tell you without even looking at the French, the Khôra is pregnant, not big. Is big with grossesse is pregnancy in French. Big and so if the Khôra is it's pregnant with everything that is disseminated here, not is big. We will go into that elsewhere. Okay. Oh, sorry. I just had a bunch of fun riffing on Khôra and stuff, but that's like, I don't know. Did that make sense? Do you follow that? Is that interesting? Anything jump out? Any questions?
I think the what you said is all good. I was just trying to connect it to the text earlier. Maybe so we're here at the point where wait, I lost track in my own PDF where we are. But yeah, this was again about metaphor in the beginning, right?
Yeah. So this is like, hey, I'll give you an example of a metaphor where it's clear it's not a metaphor by chance. It's a metaphor because it has to be scriptural.
Mm-hmm.
The imprinting thing is necessary. That's how we get to the Khôra. That's the logical connection. It's never present. The reason it's not just a metaphor is that like all the structural things about writing that Platonism hates are things that the Khôra has to have to function in the Platonic text. So of course it would have scriptural metaphors. There's no other way to talk about it. It's kind of Derrida's argument. It's necessary. Whereas the classic boneheaded classicist move is to be like, well, Plato's just trying to didactically explain philosophy to us. So he uses these metaphors just so we can get the message across, right? There's like, they're not just metaphors because they're structurally necessary. And the traditional philosophical content of a metaphor is that they're like, anytime anybody reads a text like, oh, that's a metaphor for X, meaning I don't even have to look at that. I can just think about X. Oh, that's a metaphor for global warming. So like I can watch the Planet of the Apes movies the nascent ape civilization is a metaphor for global warming. I don't even have to pay attention to the movies anymore. I can just talk about global warming. Classic critical gesture, and a classic gesture that Plato has. So that's how we got to it from this discussion above. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Does that help? Or
yeah, with the impression there, and I can follow. There was one more thing because right before you jumped into the text, there's also this discussion of trace very quickly, where trace is now also, so there's like these several, I guess, connotations or whatever. Like it's also, I think, like with ignos, it's like footsteps or whatever that you can follow. And here is also related to the womb, to matrix, to especially this receptacle thing. And I guess I mean those are kind of different. I mean, with the footsteps, I can understand this. Earlier we had this distinction between the dialectical and the non-dialectical trace. I think with footsteps, I can kind of follow. I just like what's the thing now with trace and the womb or
I think that womb is a particularly pregnant metaphor. and has a bunch of stuff in it that like maybe is not directly is I think womb is hard. I'll just say womb is hard. If we put womb to the side for a second, I think the thing about a trace and a trace, the dominant sort of connotation in trace, not the only one, of course, a trace can be a trace of anything, but the dominant connotation of trace and footprints, etc., in a hunting context, and Derrida remarks on this in the Difference essay. He's like, don't you feel like we're tracking something down, we're hunting something? We had the hunting thing earlier. But there are a few things about trace as a word that in this context that is going to get Derrida to this other stuff, and that's important for Derrida. First, okay, a trace, in order to be a trace, can't be present. Okay, if a trace didn't call to something not present, to just basically to that of which it is a trace, it wouldn't be a trace. Okay, so Khôra also like this, right? A footprint, as an example of a trace, is a impression on a surface that is recorded through an impression, right? And that recording doesn't present that which is recorded, right? So that's somebody, you need an additional interpretation of the trace to think whatever was inscribed there, right? You don't have, it's writing on the ground, basically. It's a trace of something that's not there. It's absent to itself. It receives the person walking on it, the imprint of the person walking on it. And it itself has no like no form, no constancy, right? Like the ground or the soil, etc., right? As a substrate that you imprint onto is just like a white paper and a printer in this context when we're thinking about trace. I understand not literally like soil is complex, there's biology and stuff, but I'm just saying in terms of this concept and this image and this thought, a trace isn't present. It's a trace of something that's not present, or it's not a trace, and it's something that receives that which is a trace of, and calls forth or calls towards another trace, or it starts you hunting, starts you looking through the dictionary, starts you looking through it's like a trace also can't but create the desire to follow it, to present it, is another aspect of it that maybe not as super relevant. But so like matrix, womb, and receptacle, I think receptacle probably easiest to get to here, receiving impressions. Matrix, it's like I forget the like technical etymology of matrix exactly, but I think that's kind of an easier zone we're in. I mean, it'd be interesting to relate it to the film, but I think just the technical concept of matrix, I think maybe is a little easier. I don't know. If we could track down the dictionary definition, I might feel a little better, or the dictionary etymology. But womb is like formless and alliance. Yeah, go ahead.
I think matrix is just old word for womb. I mean, like, I can be wrong. I have to look it up, but I almost think it's the same thing.
Well, but like really though, like in math, do you talk about like matrices and like, I don't know. I believe it. To my ear, to my just like stupid American English ear in this context, I don't hear womb at all in matrix. I believe you that that's what it is. I think probably you're right about that. I was thinking in the math zone. Oh, there you go. Okay, yeah, you're just right about that. Okay. Yeah. Well, there you go. So it's big with meanings, or pregnant with meanings. Okay. Matrix, matrices. Okay. Cool. Thank you. All right. So that's easier. So, okay. So we group matrix and womb. I think if we're going to say womb and we're thinking in the Platonic context, we get a few things easily with womb and matrix, right? First, the formless character of it. Like, I don't know if you guys have ever been in a womb, but like the idea of it is, you're like, there's no, in relation to that which is gestating, there's no borders, right? You're in a jello-y sort of, you're in something that receives your imprints. I mean, you could even kick your mom and nobody care. Like, I mean, you kick the edges, you eventually get to the non-womb part of the womb, right? From kicking, but the womminess of the womb is a formless substrate that contains you, right? And then that eventually, that in the gestating allows you to form yourself and is a place in which your sort of gestating, self-writing, self-forming happens, and then you're born. In the Platonic setup, the Khôra is where the sensible or the changing things, like the things that are not the intelligible, not the eidos, not the perfect, not the good, not the intelligible ideas, tupos, etc. You have to gestate and be imprinted, like you go into the womb as like a sensible thing to get the sort of good stamp on you. Then you fly out the vagina and you're in the world as a perfect sort of good entity. You're on the way to the good. That's how I would try to fill in and get to the womb stuff. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Does that help, or sort of? I mean, it's.
Yeah, I think you tied it pretty well to
the
quote, to the text. Yeah, for sure.
The Khôra is pregnant. There's in the Nietzsche Spurs book, the published English translation has Derrida saying, Nietzsche is a thinker big with thought, which is like, he's saying Nietzsche's a thinker of pregnancy, not a thinker big with thought. Nietzsche talks a lot about pregnancy. Okay. We get to the dream later. Okay. All right. Would either of you guys like to read our dreaminess here? Something like this.
Yeah, I can.
Okay, thank you.
Whence the recourse to dream a bit further on, as in that text of the Republic, where it is a question of seeing what cannot simply be conceived in terms of the opposition between sensible and intelligible, hypothetical and anti-hypothetical, a certain bastardy whose notion was probably not unknown to Democritus, and there is a third nature, which is space and is eternal, and admits not of destruction, and provides a home for all created things, and is apprehended when all sense is absent, by a kind of spurious reason, logismoi tini nothorie, bastard reasoning,
Nothos is bad.
and is hard,
Sorry, good.
and is hardly real, which we, beholding as in a dream, say of all existence that it must of necessity be in some place and occupy a space, but that what is neither in heaven nor in earth has no existence. Of these and other things of the same kind, relating to the true and waking reality of nature, we have only this dream-like sense, and we are unable to cast off sleep and determine the truth about them. Inscription is thus the production of the sun, and at the same time the constitution of structurality, the link between structural relations of proportionality on the one hand and literality on the other does not appear only in cosmogonic discourse. It can also be seen in political discourse and in the discourse of linguistics. In the political order, structure is a sort of writing. At the moment of ultimate difficulty, when no other pedagogical resources available, when theoretical discourse cannot find any other way of formulating the order, the world, the cosmos of politics, Socrates turns to the grammatical metaphor. The analogy of the large letters and small letters comes up in the famous text of the Republic, at the point where keen vision is necessary and where it seems to be lacking. Structure is read as a form of writing in an instance where the intuition of sensible or intelligible presence happens to fail. The same thing occurs in the domain of linguistics. As in Saussure's course in general linguistics, the scriptural reference becomes absolutely indispensable at the point at which the principle of difference and diacriticity in general must be accounted for as the very condition of signification. This is how Theoth comes to make his second appearance on the Platonic scene. In the Phaedrus, the inventor of the pharmacon gave a long speech in person and presented his letters as credentials to the king. More concise, more indirect, more elusive. His other intervention seems to us just as philosophically remarkable. It occurs in the name not of the invention of graphics, but of grammar, of the science of grammar as a science of differences. It is in the beginning of the syllabus. The debate is open on the relations between pleasure and intelligence or tegons. The discussion soon founders on the problem of limits, and hence, as in the Timaeus, on the composition of the same and the other, the one and the multiple, the finite and the infinite. The men of old, who were better than ourselves and dwelt nearer the gods, passed on this gift in the form of a saying. All things, as it ran, that are ever said to be consist of a one and a many, and have in their nature a conjunction of limit and unlimitedness. Socrates opposes dialectics, the art of respecting the intermediate forms to heuristic, which immediately leads towards the infinite. This time, in contrast to what happens in the Phaedrus, letters are charged with the task of introducing clarity into discourse.
Okay, I can be Protarchus. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I think I understand more or less part of what you say, Socrates, but there are some points I want to get further cleared up.
My meaning, Protarchus, is surely clearer in the case of the alphabet. So take the letters of your school days as illustrating it.
How do you mean?
The sound, phone, that proceeds through our mouths, yours and mine and everybody's, is one, isn't it? And also an unlimited variety.
To be sure?
And we have no real understanding if we stop short at knowing it either simply as an unlimited variety or simply as one. What makes a man lettered is knowing the number and the kinds of sounds.
Holy shit. Okay. Wow. Okay, wow. Okay, maybe we'll let Derrida finish this riff and then talk about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
3. You want me to go on read?
If you want, yeah, if you don't mind. Yeah.
Abstract detour through the example of musical intervals, Socrates goes back to letters in an effort to explain phonic intervals and differences. Socrates: we might take our letters again to illustrate what I mean now. The unlimited variety of sound was one discerned by some god, or perhaps some godlike man. You know the story that there was some such person in Egypt called Teeks. He it was who originally discerned the existence in that unlimited variety of the vowels, not vowel in the singular, but vowels in the plural, and then of other things which, though they could not be called articulate sounds, they were noises of a kind. There were a number of them too, not just one, and as a third class he discriminated what we now call the mutes. Having done that, he divided up the noiseless ones or mutes until he got each one by itself, and did the same thing with the vowels and the intermediate sounds. In the end, he found a number of the things, and affixed to the whole collection, as to each single member of it, the name letters. It was because he realized that none of us could get to know one of the collection all by itself, in isolation from all the rest, that he conceived of letter as a kind of bond of unity, uniting as it were all these sounds into one. And so he gave utterance to the expression art of letters, implying that there is one art that dealt with the sounds.
Danke. Okay, this is a crazy moment. I forgot. I didn't. Again, this is all new to me, so I'm excited about it. Okay. Gosh, he's gonna just keep quoting. We should probably stop. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe. Could you maybe just read this, please, and then we'll stop and talk.
The scriptural metaphor that scorps up every time difference and relation are irreducible. Oh, I need to read that again. The scriptural metaphor that scorps up every time difference and relation are irreducible. Every time otherness introduces determination and puts a system in circulation. The play of the other within being must needs be designated guiding by Plato in a discourse which would like to think of itself as spoken in essence, in truth, and which nevertheless is written.
Okay, thank you. Wow. Okay, so, gosh, we've traversed so much here in this dream to bastard to politics to structure. So, we have a sense where I think Derrida, I don't want to say buries the lead, but sort of says what he's demonstrating after he's sort of tried to demonstrate it. And so the first thing I would say, like in all this context, is anytime philosophy tries to think beyond identity, beyond presence, beyond the metaphysics of presence, or tries to understand something that can't be reduced to presence, that can't be reduced to speech as presence to itself, as presence of a good son to a good father, it has to refer to writing. Whenever philosophy is going to think beyond itself as philosophy, as metaphysics of presence, it needs something like writing, and thus writing is not just a metaphor, inscription is not just a metaphor, but an absolutely indispensable axis of thought, part. It's hard to even know what topology, something, because writing is something more than a thing, right? It's something more than a being. It's something more than a father, a son, or a mother, for that matter. So writing, Derrida's really pushing this, like, hey, whenever philosophy tries to think of something which would be beyond itself, which is all philosophy tries to do in a certain way. Philosophy is the discourse and the mode of thought that tries to include everything within itself. There's nothing that you can't philosophize about in principle, right? And so whenever philosophy thinks alterity or thinks the other, it's going to think writing and try to think in terms of writing and needs this metaphor of writing. So that's me just trying to make sense of it and glossing quickly to understand. Other thoughts about this sequence or questions or things that jump out as hard, anything like that?
So this one, wait, I have to find it in my own PDF very quickly. Oh yeah, this stuff with the letters. This was I don't know. I'm not super familiar with it, but it's like reads quite structuralist, right? I think you talked about it also quite a few times already. Just this reciprocal determination of the letters. You cannot get just one letter on its own. You have to get all of them basically at once, especially with the differences. And so you again have this thing here of like where like one letter is kind of haunted by all the others. So like P and B, for example, this like distinction they cannot stand on its own and they have to take recourse to writing again. It's like what you said. Yeah. So I guess this is a very good closing thing for me for this argument before like the more general thing comes up. Yeah, I like that.
I think that Derrida does a really good job of just again, I haven't read any of this really, but seeing this, just like, wow, Plato really said that shit. Like, it's just like, he really is just such a great reader of Plato, and is just really weaponizing these quotations well for his argument, in my view, and really getting just, there's a reason why, everybody acknowledges this as such a virtuosic reading, Plato's Pharmacy. It's probably his most famous text in terms of what made Derrida and his pure sort of virtuosity. Of Grammatology, of course, was the big book to read, but in terms of of Grammatology is amazing, and it is a monster of a text. It is really worth reading. But the reading of Rousseau is very, it's virtuosic. It's great. Derrida does really well. For me, the Plato reading is just is quite a bit more impressive. I couldn't tell you exactly why, but I just am feeling it now as I'm reading it. Just like, man, this is a gamer. All right, holy moly. Yeah, just following it with y'all. A certain bastardy. God, Barbara Johnson really was just like wasted. She was doing this. I don't know. But we got the dream stuff. We got inscription as the protection of the sun, which is kind of like this is a very hard paragraph. This proportionality, literality. I think, it's at least I will need some time with it, I think. But other than that, it's still really, yeah, I don't know. Anything jumps out to talk about before we move on? Anything hard or anything cool or I don't know. And I feel free to just be like, I don't know why, if you I'm very positive about Derrida here. Part of the reason I kind of tricked you all into reading this text for hundreds of hours, tricked myself too, was I'm so impressed by Plato's Pharmacy. I think it's such an incredible text. But if you're, of course, tell Derrida to go fuck himself if you want. Nothing wrong with it. But, one day I'll just get that to stop happening, but not today. Get me back to read mode. I like the implication of there being a read mode that you don't read it in any other. It's like, no, it wasn't in read mode. I couldn't understand what it's. Well, usually that makes this go away. Yeah. We're stuck with it for now. I like whoever had this before and who circled this. That is a circle. I would think it's patricidal.
Parricidal is, I think, just for the parents. Patricidal is for the father, and parricidal is for the parents.
Okay, I've never seen parricidal before now.
I did I was confused, so I looked it up, and I think that was the point.
Yeah. Well, you it looks like you did the work ahead of time. Great. No, thank you. That's helpful. I didn't even know what parricide means, but the mother qua parent is just a father. It's just an honorary father, so it's always patricide. That's my immediate reaction. Yes, parricide though would be more like parent killing. Because the position of the mother would be weird here. To if we've just gone through the mother as a sort of Khôra, it'd be weird for her to even be. All of a sudden, she's getting killed too. Come on, man. But it does say parricide. Parricide does be parent. Yeah. So my initial thing is it must say kill the father, but that's not what it says.
I looked it up again, and apparently it's basically all relatives, not just mother and father, but all of them.
That's awesome. Okay, so just like family. Derrida has this great quote of, rather, damn it, what did happen? Okay, Derrida has this great quote that's like, I'm not one of the family. I've never been it. I don't know. If you have good relations with your family, that's great, but I never have. And I've always liked that. And so to say writing is parasital, that's great. I'll send this to my sister. I'm writing this to you to kill you. Okay. Okay, I'll do some reading. I haven't read in a bit. Okay. And if it is written, from out of the death of Socrates, this is no doubt the profound reason for it. From out of Socrates' deaths, from out of Socrates' death, that is, it would here be just as well to say, from out of the parasite in the sophist. Okay, I have to forget exactly what happened in the sophist that's relevant to this, but we'll bracket that for question for a moment. Without that violent against Parmenides. Okay, yeah, fuck Parmenides. That's how Western metaphysics starts. Without that violent, Parmenides was BT dubs. If you don't, he wrote the famous Nature versus Doxa on nature sort of poem philosophy thing. Heidegger has very interesting reading of it. Lots of very interesting readings of it about trying to think basically this word Moira, destiny in Greek. It's like the master mystery word of the Parmenides poem, and that fragments of that poem are all we have of Parmenides left. But we've got to kill Parmenides is prior to Socrates, Plato. Without that violent eruption against the venerable paternal figure of Parmenides, against his thesis of the unity of being, without the disruptive intrusion of otherness and non-being, of non-being as other in the unity of being, writing and its play would not have been necessary. Writing is parasital. So people get the follow there of like, insofar as family and family unity, family is always qua family of unity. And so if in order to kill Parmenides, who famously thought the equivocation of thought and being is thought and thought is being. I'm going quickly and my Parmenides is not super great. I'm kind of, so please understand, if I'm not being 100% rigorous, correct me later, please. But there is a general thought of unity and of the one in Parmenides, and unity of thought and being. Thought is being. Esteem is I forget what the word for being in that context is. Ousia is, I forget. Anyway, thought is being is generalized thought. And then if we're trying to interrupt that or have something new happen to that, which Plato and Socrates were something new happening to thought as being in the unity of being, we need to be parasital, kill the family in some fashion, kill the idea that thought and being are like brothers. So is it by chance that for the stranger and the sophist, the necessity and inevitability of parricide, plain enough, as they say, for even the blind to see, tu floi, kind of sounds like tu point. One ought to say, especially for the blind to see, are the condition of possibility of a discourse on the false, the idol, the icon, the mimeme, the phantasm, and the arts concerned with such things. So we need parasite, obviously. Okay, now we're going to quote the fucking... Okay, then we'll get... Okay, Derrida, it's like you read this clearly in one evening, or in bursts in an evening where like, there's always this mark of when people write something in the evening, it's like of like, or in a continuous way. I'm going very fast and stereotyping, okay, but just like the conclusion ends up being at the end that they then reason to. They don't do the thing where they move it back to the beginning. And it's fine. It's okay. I'm not mad about it. It's just, it's like, okay, we're going to quote it now. We were talking about it earlier. Like we were, okay. The conditional discourse on the false, the idol, the icon, the meme, the phantasm, and the arts concerned with such things, and thus of writing. Writing is not named at this point, but that does not prevent, on the contrary, its relation with all the aforementioned concepts from remaining systematic, and we recognize it as such. Okay. I'll be the stranger. Who would like to be Thetis?
Figurativ.
Okay. We shall find it necessary in self-defense to put to the question that pronouncement of Father Parmenides, tantu patros Parmenidou logon. So to his logon, literally to the father, to his logos, man. And established by main force that what is not may on. We talked some known about the may on versus like ukon. In some respects has a being, and inversely that what is on in a way is not.
It is plain that the course of the argument requires us to maintain that at all costs. First, asphenitai to toiton diamaketon and toi logoi.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Us.
Really. Plain enough even for the blind to see, as they say. What is it? What are we saying? Well, to define, what is not has a being, what is has, and what is in some way has not. So it's like we're deconstructing this opposition of being and non-being in a certain way, in a proto-deconstructed way. Plain enough even for the blind to see, as they say, and we're killing Parmenides in doing so. Unless these propositions are either refuted or accepted, anyone who talks of false statements or false judgment as being images or likenesses or copies or semblances or any of the arts concerned with such things can hardly escape becoming a laughingstock by being forced to contradict himself.
Very true.
Thank you. That is why we must now dare to lay unfilial hands on that paternal pronoun. But I'm going to tell someone, I must dare to lay unfilial hands upon you. That is why we must dare to lay unfilial hands on that paternal pronouncement. Toi, patrikoi, logoi, or else, if some scruple holds us back, drop the matter entirely.
As for that, we must let no scruple hinder us.
This parricide, which opens up the play of difference in writing, is a frightening decision. Oh, yeah, we should... I know that we talked some about it. Even for an anonymous stranger, that's so funny. Even for an anonymous stranger, he's not even one of the main characters. And he's anonymous stranger. Still for him, it's got to be, he's just like a guy. I forget what the story of the strangers and stuff is. It takes superhuman strength. Holy crap. Man, Derrida's so cool, man. Thanks for reading this with me, guys. It's really fun. Okay, and one runs the risk of madness or being considered mad in the well-behaved, sane, sensible society of grateful sons. So the stranger is still afraid of not having the strength, not only to play the fool, but also to maintain a discourse that might, for real, be without head or tail. Or to put it another way, to set off on a path where he might not be able to avoid ending up walking on his head. This is famously how Socrates says, like, in the Phaedrus, Lysias gives bad speeches because he flips stuff the wrong way. He doesn't do it, he doesn't start, kind of like what I was just criticizing Derrida for. He doesn't have a beginning at the beginning, he doesn't have an end at the end. In any event, this parricide will be just as decisive, cutting, and redoubtable as capital punishment. With no hope of return. Okay, we're really fucking killing Dad. Really killing Parmenides. With no hope of having begged, with no hope of return, one lays one's head as well as one's chief. Word is chef, so like one's the boss. Chief is fine, I guess, if you want to keep the false friend. Thus, after having begged Thetis, without illusions, not to consider him a patricide, the stranger asks another favor. All right, we'll do another. Okay, okay. In that case, for the third time, I have a small favor to ask. Do you want to read Thetis again? Or killing the good brothers. Her It's okay, Freaky, if you're going to the bathroom or something.
I can also read it.
Yeah, you can.
No issue.
Yeah, sounds good.
Oh, sorry.
No,
I was there. Talking to one. No. I was talking to my mom. Sorry.
yeah, that's what I figured. I figured it. No big deal. No big deal. No big deal. It's all good, dude. Okay.
Okay. You have to read the Theatres of Science?
If you want. In that case, for the third time, I have a small favor to ask.
You have only to mention it.
I believe I confessed just now that on this point, the task of refutation has always proved too much for my powers, and still does so.
You did say that.
Well, do you see why I think Plato at every moment is so fucking funny? I don't know, like, I read this, it's like, this is hilarious. Like, okay, well, that confession, I am afraid, may make you think me scatterbrained, Manicos. I may be a little manic. I just told you. When at every turn, I shift my position to and fro. Okay. The discourse, then, is all. Paternal logos is upside down. It is then by chance. Is it then by chance? Spoilers, Derrida never thinks it's by chance when he asks by chance. If once being has appeared as a triton T, a third irreducible to the dualisms of classical ontology. Because, right, remember we said being has some is not. There's something like this. It is again necessary to turn to the example of grammatical science and of the relations among letters in order to explain the interlacing that weaves together the system of differences, solidarity, exclusion of kinds and forms, the solidarity, exclusion of kinds and forms, symploke ton edon, to which any discourse we can have owes its existence. Holy fuck, Plato really says that. The symploke to of being and non-being. OMG, man, OMG. As far as the rules of concordance and discordance, of union and exclusion among different things are concerned, this symploke, oh my god, might be said to be in the same. Derrida's got some game, man. Holy moly. The paradigm of symploke is equally literal. Okay. Okay. Grammatical. Okay, I'll read this big sucker. Grammatical science is doubtless not in itself dialectics. So Derrida's saying, Derrida, just so you can perceive the like Derrida scene screenplay here, Derrida has just now shown some really gamery quotes about how like, wow, grammatics ends up being super privileged by Plato. Then he wants to say, listen, I'm not saying I know that Plato is going to subordinate that with the other hand, right? So grammatical science is doubtless not in itself dialectics. So it's not in itself the Socratic method, right? Of Plato indeed explicitly subordinates the former to the latter. And to him, this distinction can be taken for granted. But what, in the final analysis, justifies it? This distinction between grammatical science and dialectics. Both are, in a sense, sciences of language, for dialectics is also the science that guides us, diaton logon, on the voyage through discourses or arguments. I like that, we're on voyage. At this point, what distinguishes dialectics from grammar appears twofold. On the one hand, the linguistic units it is concerned with are larger than the word. They're like concepts or ideas or narratives or natural language. It's not just words, right, that you take apart with dialectics or that Socrates takes apart. It's like, what do you think is justice? Oh, well, here's what justice is. It's that thing or that thing. Okay, but what's just about all this justice? Like, it's bigger linguistic and semantic categories, right, than alphabet, than just the alphabet, right? On the other, dialectics is always guided by an intention of truth. It can only be satisfied by the presence of the eidos, which is here both the signified and the referent, the thing itself. So if we're in a dialectical discussion about justice, until we have presented the concept of justice, we're not going to be satisfied, right? The distinction between grammar and dialectics can thus only in all rigor be established at the point where truth is fully present and fills the logos. But what the parasite and the sophist establishes is not only that any full absolute presence of what is, of the being present that most truly is, the god or the sun that can't be looked in the face, is impossible. Not only that any full intuition of truth, any truth-filled intuition, is impossible, but that the very condition of discourse, true or false discourse, is the diacritical principle of the sum ploqué. If truth is the presence of the eidos, it must always, on pain of mortal blinding by the sun's fires, come to terms with relation, non-presence, and thus non-truth. It then follows that the absolute precondition for a rigorous difference between grammar and dialectics or ontology cannot in principle be fulfilled. Or at least it can perhaps be fulfilled at the root of the principle, at the point of archie-being or archie-truth, but that point has been crossed out by the necessity of parricide, which means by the very necessity of logos. And that is the difference that prevents there being, in fact, any difference between grammar and ontology. Okay, Derrida is on quite a riff here. This might be a place to come back next week. I don't know. We didn't take a break like we said we were, so I don't know. But we have a few minutes to talk, I guess, about questions or thoughts. Really intense place to finish. This is Derrida like beating Plato in his view, right? So yeah, I don't know. So just we have like 2 or 3 minutes. I mean, just what do y'all think? Do you have any questions? Anything that's hard? Anything you want to talk about? Or is there a particular sentence here that's like hard? This is all pretty hard.
I think the whole movement is pretty intense. And like just at the end of the session, it's a bit more difficult to follow along. Yeah. I think I would have to read that before the next session. Just to pass.
I think we did a really good job. I think we could. I feel good. So I don't know. I think maybe we just we call it a day there, and then we have, I don't know, like 5 or 6 pages of this left next week, and then we're then I talked to Ed about this. I am getting certificates for us, so we'll all get a certificate, sort of as an expert in Plato's Pharmacy. So I'm excited for that. But
what's the next step? What is it going to be after this?
I'm thinking we do, okay, tell me if you okay with this, because but I'm thinking we do, okay, this text called No Apocalypse Not Now. That's about nuclear war. And it's my favorite Derrida essay. I like it because I think it'll be a good contrast to this, because first of all, it's very short. And I'm really only interested in like 5 sentences of it. I'm interested in all of it, but it's like, it's, you'll see, like I'm in love with this like sequence of 4 or 5 sentences where I think Derrida like destroys deconstruction. He talks about what he calls the absolute trace. And in principle, there shouldn't be an absolute trace. That shouldn't exist in deconstruction. That should be banned, but it's not. He develops it, and he talks about how deconstruction belongs to the nuclear age and belongs to the apocalyptic age, when we've started to think apocalypse, which is what nukes gave us, was the idea in the, all kinds of cultures, everybody has always thought about apocalypse. That's not new. But the idea of an apocalypse that's not a cycle, that's not a revelation, like an apocalypse in the Bible means revelation, right? So it's not a new, but the idea of an apocalypse that doesn't reveal anything, that just ends literature, ends the archive because it's all blown up. That's what Derrida's trying to think in No Apocalypse Not Now. He tries to he thinks of deconstruction basically as an attempt at all costs to avoid that super giga apocalypse. This is why it's called No Apocalypse Not Now. So it's a really fucking cool text. So I thought maybe we'd do that. And it will not take anywhere near as long as this.
Yeah.
But it'll be really fun, I think.
Yeah, that sounds cool.
Okay, cool. Thank you guys. Talk to you soon.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.
Yeah, thank you too. I just wanted to very quickly say, because I think maybe you also wanted to speak about the play games and creativity thing, I just remembered in the very beginning there was this.
Oh yeah. Okay, I'll say one thing about because I really did bring that up, and I think like we had this set of analogies of like in terms of if play is lost in games, how do we think about it in terms of like traditions of fine arts or traditions of like music? So there's a thinking of like jazz that's like, well, jazz is good when it's pure experimentation or pure freedom. And what Derrida would say in response to this, I think, would be actually, this might be how Plato would evaluate creativity in a way that maybe Derrida and Lyotard would too, not just Plato, but like a lot of people would evaluate creativity as sort of wearing out in rules. And like Derrida's trying to think something that can play that would be repeatable or have some chance when it becomes a fine art or becomes a game. But if it allows itself to be reduced to a game, so if jazz becomes only a tradition, if EDM becomes only a tradition, if basically if expertise defines the art form, it loses its capacity to remain an art form, something like that. I don't know. That's kind of what I thought in the 10 minutes I thought about it before class, but we can maybe, but we can maybe, or before our regroup, not class, before, but we maybe talk about it more. I don't know, but because Ree is like a brilliant musician and is going into philosophy to in a way that maybe I hope we can explore that relation more. So because I just I'd be really interested to hear more thoughts about it because I've always really talked to you about music, but I don't know, no pressure.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, see you all soon.
Bye bye.
Yeah. Bye.
See ya. Bye bye.